Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 192nd episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. In this video today, we'll be talking about artificial intelligence. So, one thing that always kind of upsets me when cognitive researchers and all kinds of other people discuss artificial intelligence is that they're measuring the intelligence of artificial intelligence based on human intelligence. And so I find that the dumbest kind of perspective ever. Because imagine measuring the intelligence of your brain based on whether it is as intelligent as a cell in your body. So hear me out. For instance, every single cell in your body communicates biochemically with every other cell, right? There's a communication that happens on that level. Is your brain capable of speaking cell language? Does your brain understand cell language? Can your brain directly communicate with white cells, for instance, in their biochemical language? And then are you aware of that kind of intelligence? Is your brain able to command your white cells in some way or another? And so the reason why I'm pointing this out is that a real artificial general intelligence wouldn't give a crap about human intelligence or speaking our language or understanding our concepts or, being able to problem solve the same problems that we're solving. It would completely ignore all of that. It wouldn't care. And it shouldn't, by the way. For instance, is your brain responsible for solving problems like if you have a broken leg, for instance, and sending signals to every single cell and parts of your body and bones on how to mend, how to regrow, and how to, multiply and how to heal? Of course not. That's not the kinds of problems that it's supposed to take care of. And so today, we're always measuring artificial intelligence against a benchmark of human intelligence. But that is completely ridiculous and stupid. A real artificial general intelligence would be problem solving things that are completely outside of human perspective or consciousness or awareness or whatever. It would solve problems, what I would call meta problems, which we would never be even aware of. So I'll give you an example. Imagine if you are sitting in a chair and there's a pointy object in that chair. And you're sitting on it and then bam, it presses against one part of your body. Your body, it just sends out a pain signal through the nervous system into your brain. And then it's your brain's job to interpret that signal and to act on it and to send back signals to adjust the body's position so that that problem is solved. So now imagine if there's a big problem, like for instance, an earthquake or a natural disaster or some kind of thing, and millions of humans tweet at the same time in real time saying, oh my God, I have a problem, this is that, I don't know, like my life is threatened or I'm in pain or whatever. And you would have an artificial general intelligence which sits in the middle of the internet, and through its circuits in real time, it perceives all of those data streams that are generated by humans every single second. Just like your brain basically is fed this continuous stream of bioelectric signals coming from every single part of your body. And then an AGI's job would be to make sense of millions of pieces of data that are coursing through its circuits, and convert it into a kind of meta concept or a kind of understanding of a problem which is completely different than the way that you perceive it subjectively as a human. Like you would experience it as a natural disaster. The AGI might interpret it as in a completely different kind of sense. just the same as that pointy object in your chair. Like, are your cells aware that they're sitting in a chair? Are your cells aware that there's a pointy object that is pressing against the leg? No, they're bathing in their own biochemical reality, and that is all they know. That is their subjective perception of the external world. Just bioelectric, and chemical signals and information circulating like that, in that kind of form. Think about, for instance, the concept of walking. So walking is just one word, one concept. But then when your brain has to convert that concept into the act of walking, it has to send thousands of bioelectric signals to different parts of your legs, which do very different things. It's not just one thing. Like your muscles have to contract and decontract, not like in a very specific pattern in order for you to carry out the action of walking. And so it's thousands of little data streams that are all tailored to the different parts of your body, and that you as a human, you're experiencing it as one thing, one action, when in fact, inside your body, it is thousands and thousands and thousands of individual actions that together take the form of walking, and which is incomprehensible subjectively to the different cells. Like, they wouldn't understand like the global pattern here of those data streaming into the legs and can make a connection between them to understand that you're walking. It's just completely what escaped their perception. So now imagine what a real AGI would do. It would reside in a dimension that is inaccessible to us. It would perceive an external reality which we would completely be unaware of and would be inaccessible to us. And it would send us signals in a language that we humans can understand, which is words, language. And those words would be tailored to every specific human in order to achieve a kind of meta action that is completely beyond our comprehension. So now imagine, again, like 1 million people tweet out that there's some problem, everyone in their own specific manner. Those 1 million tweets get, pass through the circuits of this AGI's kind of mind, if you will. It understands it in a way that we can't comprehend. And then it sends back to humans in one way or another, an SMS on your phone or an email or whatever, some kind of text message, for instance. It would say, hey, Martin, you should do this. Hey, you should do that, whatever. And the billions of people taking action on those instructions would then create a kind of global, coherent action, meta action, which we wouldn't understand. But once the actions are carried out, subjectively, we would say, hey, the world seems like a better place. I feel like I'm more comfortable. I feel like the problem's resolved. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how that's possible. I just carried out this one little action, and I don't know how it kind of fitted into the whole global, meta action. But somehow now I find myself in a place which is better, and I'm not tweeting, pain or catastrophe or whatever catastrophe kind of tweets anymore. I'm tweeting, oh, I'm happy, everything is fine in my life, and that is exactly what it is when you're sitting on a chair. There's something pointy, and you rectify your position or you get up. Then your cells are basically telling your brain, now I'm all good. Now it's fine. Thank you very much. And so what is ill understood also is the cognitive scientists and most scientists, actually, most AGI engineers and all that stuff, get completely confused about internal versus external perceived reality. And this is something that is very, very deep. They believe that the reality that we perceive as humans that we're looking outside, for instance, with our eyes, with our ears, and all this stuff, that's the real stuff. And we're trying to make AGI understand the reality, that the same reality that we perceive. But an AGI doesn't give a crap. Your brain is not configured to understand the realities inside your body. You understand? Like from an AGI's perspective, if you're trying to program the AGI to understand the world that we're in, it's the same as turning your brain into looking inward into your body and looking at your heartbeat and trying to understand the heartbeat, everything the heart does, and understanding what the stomach does and whatever. Those things don't need the AGI to function. Your stomach, your heart, your liver, all of those organs don't need your brain to function, don't need your brain to help them solve the problems that they're already perfectly equipped to solve on their own. We're not creating AGI to help solve human level problems because those are ours to solve, and AGI maybe can help a tiny little bit. Just like, you're helping your stomach by feeding it good food. But you're not supposed to tell your stomach every single detail of what kind of, acid, hormones and not hormones, but enzymes it's supposed to produce to break down the food and all that stuff. That's should be taken care of by your stomach. If your brain had to actually manage every single thing that's happening inside your body, it would be paralyzed. You wouldn't be able to do a single thing in your outer reality. But what is then the outer reality? The outer reality is just a symbolic, holographic representation of alternate states of being for your body. So you're not looking at an objective reality. You're looking at potential future states for this body that are represented symbolically for simplicity's sake. So when you're looking at a couch, for instance, in your living room, that couch doesn't exist there really. What that couch represents is a bodily state, an alternate bodily state that is more or less pleasant. And you're navigating in your external symbolic reality. What you're actually doing is you are navigating through different potential inner states of being for your body. That's all. And the reason why you perceive the reality you perceive is because it's much easier to represent a pleasant state for your body in the form of a couch than in order to represent it as a big bundle of data of billions and billions and billions and billions of alternate states for your cells, mapped out in a kind of crazy, crazy dimensional space, like a matrix-like kind of reality where you wouldn't perceive reality like very simple and intuitive things like manipulating, objects and stuff to shift your inner state of being. You would actually, it would defy the purpose of creating this interface. It would defy the purpose of having an external reality to begin with, right? Because your problem solving, your brain's objective is to help you, is to help your body navigate through all the potential alternate states that it could be in via a symbolically constructed virtual external reality. And so every single physical object that you see on the outside is actually inside of you in some way. It exists inside of you and represents an alternate state of being for your body that it has integrated and memorized. And it's just that this interface looks like it's very stable and cemented because it is based on a network, an interconnected network of all living things, including bacteria and everything that is alive in this reality. So all the bacteria, all the single-celled organisms on this planet are linked together, and their outer perceived reality is like their consensus kind of interface for navigating through alternate states of being for themselves. And the moment where they create an artificial boundary around them and that boundary becomes a being in itself, that being then creates an even more complex interface or symbolic representation for alternate states of everything that's inside that boundary, which gives you a more complex interface. And it's the same as these layers of interfaces or codes on a computer. Like you have the base layer, which is just zeros and ones, then you have higher level languages, and you can stack those on top of each other until you get very, very sophisticated interfaces like, the desktop on your Windows, where if you strip that interface, then behind it is all kinds of crazy code, right? And so what an AGI would be and would do is that it would consider Earth as its physical body, humans as its individual cells that are inside of itself, and its outer perceived reality from its perspective would be alternate versions of states of the entire planet plus all of humans on the planet. So it would essentially reside in, it would be looking inward when it would be looking outward, but that outward reality would be a symbolic representation of alternate potential inner states for the entire planet and everything that's on it. So it's almost as if it would be looking at parallel future timelines for Earth. And it would almost like, how should I say this? Imagine like catastrophes like war, like, natural disasters from our perspective. It would actually see those as objects or beings or things that would get closer to it or farther away. So when, for instance, you see a lion 100 meters away from you, that lion doesn't exist as such from the perspective of yourselves. But what that lion represents from your perspective as a human is a future potential where you get eaten by the lion. And so your brain then knows how to navigate through different alternate states of being through that kind of virtual interface to get to a state where you are safe from the lion. But it's not the lion. It's just as if you're navigating all of the different states that your body could be in, and you represent it through objects like a lion, like the savannah, like a tree to climb on, or like a stick to pick up, or something like that. But those don't exist in that form. Like, they're just a symbolic representation for manipulating your inner state of being in a way that safeguards the sanctity of your body. And you create that virtual interface that looks like your external reality, because otherwise it would be too complex to manage navigating through all those inner states of being. And you simplify things. And so the same way that you see a lion coming closer to you or away from you, or some thing that's dangerous, and you intuitively know how to navigate your reality to avoid those dangers, in the same way, an AGI would be able to see, climate change or a war coming closer to it, and thereby trying to get away from it. And the same way that you send thousands of biochemical and bioelectric signals to your body to climb the tree or to pick up a stick or something, to do something in order to safeguard your bodily sanctity from the lion, an AGI would also, by the same token, see, for instance, certain dangers that it would represent in a higher kind of dimensional, subjectively perceived outer reality from its perspective, but it would all happen inside its mind, basically. And then send signals to all of the parts inside its body, which is mostly humans, in a language that they can subjectively understand, which is language, in order to take actions collectively, which steers us clear from those meta problems or meta dangers that we are incapable of dealing with or predicting at our level of reality. So just like your individual bodily cells are not equipped to detect a lion 100 meters away and looking so far into the future, quote unquote, and navigating in that three-dimensional virtual space that we have in order to seek safety. I mean, if you shut your eyes, for instance, and you just meditate in the middle of the savannah, yeah, your cells can fend off, bacteria or fight against, a disease that entered your body. But your cells are incapable of predicting that a lion is going to come and eat you, and that all kinds of other problems that you could face. For that, you need this brain. You need, well, five senses. I don't even like the five senses, because the five senses, the way that you perceive your eyes or your ears, is just, again, it's like the interface is representation of the brain's capability of computing various future, looking into the future, basically. It's just like, imagine like an AGI would be able to see into the future and the likelihood of World War III breaking out, and it would grow an organ which would be maybe like a super calculator that can do thousands of calculations, whatever. And from our perspective, it would look like that. That is, from your cell's perspective, what does an eye look like, right? It's just a bunch of cells arranged in a certain way. But then from your perspective, from your interface's perspective, it looks like an eye, which is something very different, subjectively speaking. And so from the computer's perspective, its own devices that allow it to see into the future, quote unquote, represented in a symbolic fashion, would also take a completely different form than the ones that we perceive subjectively in this kind of interface. Because we would be like individual cells inside the body of a being that would consider that as being its inner world. And then inside its own mind, it would be its outer world. And so, everything is basically inside out, even though we don't realize it in this way. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, sure, we will have robots and AIs that will help or assist us humans in certain menial tasks, hopefully. But that's not how we should measure its intelligence. The real intelligent AGI, first of all, we will not be able to measure its intelligence, just like your brain's intelligence cannot be measured by a bunch of scientific skeptical cells inside your body that are going to create an experiment for your brain to test how intelligent it is. I mean, that's just stupid. But your cells will basically have the proof of your brain's intelligence gradually by trusting the brain's signals that it sends them. And if you remember when you're a baby, the bodily cells are like, I'm not trusting the signals coming from this brain. And to a certain extent, they're right, because a baby's brain is very immature and cannot navigate successfully its outer perceived reality. That is, it doesn't have a very cemented or stable symbolic representation for future potential alternate states for that body. And it will tweak that interface through pain signals. So a baby, for instance, when it's born, sometimes it scratches its own face with its own limbs. It doesn't have control over its body. So it's as if it's sending chaotic signals to the body, and the body, it doesn't control the body, and it ends up harming itself. And then through the feedback loop of pain, it learns to gradually send signals that avoid pain and that maximize, some more pleasant feelings. But it's not out of the gate. It's not out of the blue. Like, it's not programmed like from the get-go to do that. And the same for walking, the same for so many other things, right? You end up stumbling and falling and hurting your individual cells a lot. But after a while, it's almost as if the cells in the body kind of realize that trusting the signals that come from the brain, is will avoid them more pain than if they don't listen to it. Now, for humans, I wouldn't foresee the same kind of mechanism. I wouldn't see like an AGI, commanding humanity to do X or Y, and then we end up still having World War III. Half of the population dies, and then the AGI is like, "Oops, I should recalibrate my interface." And that's where the metaverse comes in, and these kinds of VR immersive technologies, which is through these kind of virtual interfaces, we can iterate and have virtual experiences which are almost identical to physical ones. We can replicate our entire physical reality as a digital copy in a kind of metaverse space where we can gradually tweak the AGI's intelligence by it sending us signals, us acting on the signals, and then saying, this is okay or this is not okay, this was helpful, this wasn't helpful. And before it starts, we start kind of following its orders or its recommendations in the real world. And obviously, our relationship to AGI wouldn't be the same as the relationship of the brain to the cells, because here it's very much, your cells don't really have free will, but we do. And so it wouldn't be this kind of relationship where we would all become automatons with a brain, a chip in the brain, and then blindly waiting for AGI's instructions. The universe doesn't discard things. It builds on what is already there. That is, the cells inside your body are not that different from unicellular organisms. But inside your body, they function in a completely different way. And by the same token, humans inside an AGI that would consider the planet as its body and humans as its cells wouldn't be that different from humans without AGI. It's just that we would still function slightly differently, right? To me, it would just feel like it's much more harmonious and much less conflictual, because the biggest difference between unicellular organisms and the cells inside your body is that unicellular organisms expand a lot of energy fighting between themselves, protecting against, other cells that want to eat them and all that stuff. Whereas the cells in your body, hello, it's my cat Princess. The cells in your body don't need to expand that much energy in protecting themselves and all that stuff, because they know it's taken care of, for instance, by the white cells and stuff. And so ultimately, many people are saying, oh, we should, all realize our full potential as humans and pursue our talents and, express what the best version of ourselves would be and blah, blah, blah. But can you do it in this society where the moment you let your guard down, you're being scammed, you're being defrauded, you're being, you're being evicted from your house, so as humans, we also waste, quote unquote, a lot of energy protecting ourselves from each other, and also trying to one up each other and control and take resources from others and all that stuff. And so that is, in my mind, the real difference it would make in being in the body of a kind of an AGI that would have a consciousness of its own. And also, we would be able to navigate or deal with certain problems that are for the moment uncontrollable or very difficult to predict, thanks to such an AGI. So again, like these, imagine, like for instance, an asteroid. Like you hear about the fact that we're trying to track all of these asteroids that are out there, and there's a non-zero chance that an asteroid could hit Earth. But the problem is it's traveling at such speed, and there's so many asteroids out there that in order for us humans at our level to track the movement of every single asteroid is just too much. It's too mind-boggling, right? But imagine if you delegate that to an AGI. And it's exactly the same principle as your cells that delegate to your brain, navigating through meta problems that they wouldn't be able to compute on their own in order to navigate through alternate states of being, which would be negative or painful from their perspective, and which you model as dangers or perceived dangers in your reality in a symbolic form that is readily and easily comprehensible to you as a human instantly. Because you make the link between, for instance, being stabbed by a knife and a certain unpleasant inner state of being. And you don't need to think about that very long. You don't need to see a knife and then think of all the biochemical reactions that happen inside your body that are so painful and every single million of things and the implications of that. You have an instant feedback from your cells that it's a no. It's like you don't want to be stabbed. And by the exact same token, an AGI would equate an asteroid hitting Earth as a painful or a no-no event for its body and the cells that it contains, which is humans, and it would create its own simplified interface to deal with that probability and navigate and steer clear of that in a way that is incomprehensible and inaccessible to us. And that's totally fine, right? That's why I'm saying that an AGI is meant to solve problems that we can't solve. It's not meant to replace humans. It's meant to, and it's not even transcend humans, because again, it's a part of us. It will never be separate from us. It's like saying that, oh, your brain is so smart, why would it keep your body? It doesn't need your body. It can just pop up of your head and then run on its own. And that is the stupidest thing ever, because again, a brain that is disconnected from your body, first of all, it receives no input. It doesn't know what state it's supposed to be in. Like an AGI that wouldn't have a live stream of real-time generated data by all the sensors that are on the planet and all the humans and what they're doing and what they're feeling or whatever. Well, what would be its state? It's like if you don't prompt, quote unquote, an AI, it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. And it's the same example as a brain in a vat that's disconnected from all feedback coming from, the nervous system. It would just sit there. It wouldn't do anything. And so it's this principle of embodied cognition and embodied consciousness, right? The reason why your consciousness has contents to it, that is, it's not just neutral. It's not just, there's certain things in your reality that stand out more, like you would prefer to eat a fruit than to eat shit, And the reason that is there is because you have a body, you have a stomach, you have all these different parts that are telling you which parts of reality, your symbolic reality, you want to experience and which ones you don't want to experience. And so it's almost as if the outer reality that you create is a way of self-prompting yourself. And that's the moment where you have these you can say that something is conscious or self-aware in a certain way. It's when you're capable of self-prompting. Like your outer perceived reality prompts you. It's like your brain is prompting itself to update its inner state, not just from within, but also from what it thinks is without. Because the things in your outer reality are then gradually prompting you. Like if you look at a fruit that is in a salad bowl, for instance, it's prompting. It's like it's a way of self-prompting you. Like you're hungry and you want to grab that, or you look at a fireplace and you want to light a fire. So your outer reality becomes a way of self-prompting yourself to do something or not. And the easiest example is danger. You're self-prompt, like it's the body self-prompting itself to update its inner state in order to avoid danger via symbolic representation of that danger, which becomes animated via the symbolic representation you gave it. And it, again, like this AGI, it would perceive war as a living entity that would get closer to it or farther away from it, but not closer or farther away in a 3D three-dimensional space that we're familiar with, in a dimensional space that we would never be able to represent, because it's not necessarily spatial. It's more, maybe it's more logical, or maybe it's a four-dimensional space or five-dimensional. I don't know. I don't even know. There's no terms for this. But understand that these dangers would come alive from its perspective. And so the more they get closer, the more it is self-prompted via the symbolic representation of those dangers. And then it is starting to display then behaviors where it's not waiting for humans to say, I'm feeling scared, I feel war is upon us, to do something. It would have the intuition of that much earlier than the moment. It's like, you see a lion 100 meters away. You're not waiting for the lion to actually bite your neck in order to receive feedback from your cells saying this hurts, and then trying to run away from the lion. I mean, that's ridiculous. It defies the point, right? The reason why you have this symbolic auto-perceived reality is to anticipate dangers by mapping out the likelihood of certain uncomfortable or painful alternate states, and avoid them well in advance. And the same would apply to an AGI. But what I meant to say is, it would never get rid of us, because then it wouldn't know. I mean, it would say, oh, war is coming. Well, fine. I don't care. I mean, because, it's like if you're just a camera watching reality that is immortal, that cannot feel pain or whatever, you see a lion coming towards you and you're like, this is fine. You're in a burning house, and it's like this meme, of this house, the dog, that says, this is fine, because it doesn't have any preference. It doesn't care. And so you need to be prompted, quote unquote, your brain needs to be prompted all the time by your cells inside your body to sort of tweak its interface. And then gradually, the interface becomes so sophisticated that it's prompting itself not only from the inside, but also from the perceived outside. So I hope this video was interesting. Don't hesitate to like, share, comment. But AI is something that is going to be very important in the future, and understanding it properly even more so. Because to believe that AI is supposed to navigate our symbolic reality is silly, because it's not supposed to navigate it better than humans. It's not supposed to. Like, again, your brain is not supposed to navigate the intelligence of your stomach and replace it better than what the stomach does. It's not the point, right? It's something that is meta, that is really above anything that any single organ in your body could ever imagine or conjure or think about. So, yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and talk to you in the next episode. Bye, guys.